Welcome back to another Data Mine today, guys. We are getting a brand new event towards Tulipa's seas. This new event brings us a brand new faction, the Kingdom of Tulipa, a kingdom of windmills and tulips. Of course, this represents the Dutch faction for Azur Lane. This really excited me not only because it's brand new content, but it's also a historical minor faction, so that really is cool. They announced today's event with a stream earlier this week that I covered, and just before they announced the ships, I had a side thought that ended up seeming like future sight.
New stuff? Let's do it. They're still giving us like Russian memes here. Right into the end, watch it just be Russian ships. They're like, we did a whole windmill stream here, but it's actually gonna be Russians. Troll.
Yes, this event got hijacked by the Russians. There are still going to be Dutch girls, but only 2 of them. I'll say this now, and this will be the only time during this video that I mention it. I was disappointed by the fact that this was a mixed faction event. The Dutch should have had their first event be exclusive to them. Nevertheless, we still got some cool things to go over today. Slow Ahead Season 2 was announced, so those of you who like that slice of life moe anime will get another season of it. Morgador and Haishen are going to be getting new secret memories. We're going to be getting a rapid training campaign, so you'll be able to quick finish 10 tactical classes immediately every day. Thus, you should be able to level up the new girls from this event very quickly. And speaking of this event, let's talk about it. We get a lot of the usual for this event. We're going to get a new Dutch dorm theme, as well as some very Dutch gear skins. And of course, there will be ship skins. Each of the new banner girls will get their own skin, and so will Albion, Taiyun, and Hakuryu. The event map itself will be pretty basic. You're going to want to farm D3 if you can. This is where the new SR ship girl Kazan will drop. Kazan will also be available in the shop. Also in the shop will be a new item called the Bouquet of Tulips. And since this is the only new equipment that we get today, I'm going to start off with this item. The Bouquet of Tulips is the first Kingdom of Tulipia item. It's a purple auxiliary item. It's an HP item, and because unfortunately it is only an elite rarity, it only gets plus 11, so not as much HP as those standard SR HP items. That is unfortunate, but its skill is really good. When equipped by any ship, it's not faction locked. For the first 40 seconds of the battle, that ship gets minus 5% damage taken. That is a really good skill. It's just unfortunate that it's on an item that has inferior stats. To make up the difference between the 640 HP that a standard SR HP item has and the 530 that this one has, you would need to have 110 HP reduced from the damage reduction skill. So that means in the first 40 seconds, if your ship takes 2,200 or more damage, you're getting a benefit out of the Bouquet of Tulips. This doesn't take into account any skills that those SR HP items provide you with as well. So you basically need to be taking about 2,500 points of damage in the first 40 seconds for this item to be better than one of those SR items. But that's not unrealistic. It is higher than a lot of the destroyers that you would want to put this on's HP, but it is low enough that maybe a light cruiser might want it. Generally, you're probably going to not play this. However, it could be played in a bunch of different stuff. It's certainly better than a repair toolkit, so if you're a new player, definitely use this. And I would not miss this. I think this is a must pick up for the event just because it is the only item in this faction. It also is pretty good. It's better than the standard versions of the elite items for auxiliaries. It's got a cool, unique skill. This is a must pick up for me. All right, with that out of the way, let's get into this ships. I'm going to start with the Dutch ships because this should be a Dutch event, and also they're the ships I'm most excited about. So the first ship that we're going to talk about is the SR light cruiser HNLMS de Zeven Provinciën. Now, the Royal Netherlands Navy had 8 ships that went by this name. However, this ship references the one that was laid down in 1939 and finally commissioned in 1953, so after World War II, and it served all the way till 1999 in the Peruvian Navy. All right, history lesson aside, I mean, it's been such a long time since we've gotten a bunch of real ships. Let's look at the stats of this new ship. Stat-wise, she actually looks pretty unique. There's not a specific ship that stands out immediately that she's comparable to. I guess if I look very specifically, Voroshilov is probably the closest I could find. A big thing that stands out in her stats is that she has the highest reload of any light cruiser in the game, just barely edging out San Diego Retrofit. She looks very ready to tank aviation aviation damage with that high reload and anti-air stat. She also has a good health pool and light armor and high luck. However, probably most impressive about her kit so far is her equipment typing. She has an anti-air gun +1. On top of that, you can actually use an anti-air gun for her torpedo slot, giving her 2 equipped anti-air guns. That's 130 anti-air stat if you use both UR guns. Her efficiencies aren't super high, but the fact that she has 3 anti-air guns potentially gives her some really high anti-air damage. She also gets a main gun +1, so that helps if you do decide to put the 3rd anti-air gun on her and give up the torpedoes. She can still do decent damage with just her firepower main gun +1. She also has a lot of flexibility here, because if you need more DPS because you're not in an anti-air world, for example, you can put the torpedoes on and get that extra damage. This is probably the most excited I've been in a long time for an SR ship's stats. Let's hope her skills don't disappoint. Skill number 1, +20% to her firepower and hit stat. Very solid, increasing her DPS. Also, every 20 seconds, she gets a 70% chance to trigger a special barrage. It looks like this. It shows the green druid sort of vibe there. Kind of weird that in 2025 we have 70% chance to proc. However, if it fails, you get an alternative, which is a -20% damage taken for 10 seconds. That's really good. The only qualm you're going to have here is that the RNG is going to pick which of the 2 you want. You might get the barrage when you want the damage reduction. You might get the damage reduction when you want the barrage damage. So you don't get to choose, but both of those options seem good enough to me. So we have a good solid first skill. Skill number 2 starts off with +20% anti-air stat. Oh my gosh, is this an anti-air ship? She starts off with good anti-air. She gets 3 anti-air guns and she gets an anti-air skill boost. San Diego and Cheshire better watch out. When an enemy aircraft is shot down within the anti-air circle, trigger a special barrage and heal the lowest HP ship by 3% of their max HP. 10-second cooldown between activations. That can be a massive heal, especially if you're healing backliners. Most likely you're going to be healing frontliners. It can heal herself. That 10-second cooldown's not that bad. In PvE with high aviation worlds, you're going to be able to shoot down a lot of aircraft to trigger this, so that is a lot of healing. This is a good heal. And then she caps off her 3rd skill with just a standard all-out assault. So this is an anti-air gun tailored ship, and man, does it look good at what it's trying to do. When I calculate out her anti-air damage, she's going to be very close to Akashi. And if you remember, Akashi was one of the best anti-air ships in the game. She is very good at shooting down planes. San Diego retrofit scales a little bit better, potentially with her skill proccing, giving the anti-air to everyone in the fleet and the damage reduction from aviation. But as far as actually shooting down planes, I think this ship might be the best in slot Vanguard ship for shooting down planes. That's actually pretty impressive for an SR ship from a minor faction in a minor event. Starting off strong. Next up, I'm going to stick with the Dutch, and we're going to go to the Elite Destroyer HNLMS Evertsen. This is also a commonly reused name for Dutch ships, but this one specifically is the Admiral-class destroyer that was sunk in 1942. All right, let's look at her stats, and being an elite destroyer, they're bad. Not too much more to say about that other than her health pool is especially low even for an elite destroyer. Nothing fun with her equipment efficiencies, so let's go on to the skills. Skill number 1, plus 15% firepower stat. Also, when this ship fires its torpedoes, generate a shield that blocks 10 shots. The shield lasts for 5 seconds only and has a 10-second cooldown between activations. That 10-second cooldown really shouldn't matter unless you're playing manually and holding torpedo procs, because torpedoes tend to reload slower than 10 seconds anyway. Also, while this shield is active, every second heal the lowest HP Vanguard ship by 1% of their max HP. So she has a heal and a shield. That's nice, helps with her survivability. The heal can go anywhere, so we like that. It's going to be 5% over those 5 seconds. And realistically, because it's tied to torpedoes and she has a preloaded torpedo, she'll get it right at the beginning of the match, and it's very likely that she will get another one before she dies. You can actually time this with different torpedoes you equip with her. Overall, we like this first skill. I just noticed that both of these Dutch ships are having heals, so maybe the theme for the Dutch faction is going to be healing, which would make sense if they're all like druid fairies. But anyway, let's move on to skill number 2. At the start of the battle, she's going to launch a recon plane, and this recon plane does nothing. Okay, well that's kind of lame. For every ship sunk by this ship, That's very important. During the battle, she gets minus 5% damage taken and plus 10% main gun efficiency. That stacks 3 times, so maximum of 15% damage taken reduction and a plus 30% to her main gun efficiency. Well, this skill is terrible. The recon plane does nothing. She has to sink things, which is going to be really hard to begin with, and then she's going to get survivability later in the match after she sinks a bunch of things. Her main gun efficiency isn't really going to matter. She doesn't have a good firepower stat or a main gun +1 or anything that's good. This skill is garbage. And her all-out assault exists as her 3rd skill. So overall, this ship is pretty much collection only. The skill number 1 is kind of interesting as far as the heal goes, but this isn't a collection only ship. She has stats that are just too pitiful to have average skills. All right, with that, we are done with all of the Dutch ships. What a great Dutch event. So the other half of the banner is going to be Russian ships. The first one being the SR battleship Kazan. So this is definitely not a real ship. It is a paper ship, and speculation is that this is based on the Project 21 battleship. Her stats actually look pretty decent for an SR battleship. Obviously, comparing her to any of the Rainbow Rarity ships is going to be a struggle, but if you exclude those, she's probably at the top of the pack. Her stats look very similar to Izumo, although slightly worse because of the efficiencies. All right, let's move on to skills. Skill number 1, she gets plus 15% firepower stat. Nice. Also, when she fires her main gun, she's going to A, trigger a special barrage that slows enemies by 40%. Great, it's a guaranteed barrage, it's a slow, and it looks very solid. It covers most of the map with those icicles. Good damage on it. We like this barrage battleship. On top of that, she gets another effect when she fires her main gun, and that is she's going to randomly select a Vanguard fleet ship and redirect 50% of that ship's damage taken for the next 10 seconds to herself, and then she's going to reduce the damage she takes by this effect by 20%. So if a Vanguard ship was to take 100 damage, her skill would make that Vanguard ship only take 50 damage, and then she would take 40 damage. This behaves very similarly to South Dakota's skill. So this ship is definitely a barrage battleship, and we definitely like the first part of this skill. And there's more. When this ship falls below 90, 80, and 70% of her max HP, max 1 trigger per threshold per battle, she and all your Vanguard ships are going to get plus 8% reload and hit stat. So this can trigger 3 times over the course of the battle and is not that hard to actually activate. Because it affects reload and it is determined by damage, it could throw off your timing if you try to sync up your salvos. However, overall, this seems like a pretty good permanent buff. Off to a solid start with this ship. Skill number 2, every 20 seconds, she heals the lowest HP ship in your fleet by 5% of their max HP, so it's a heal. And then 5 seconds after that, if there is a ship still under 50% of their max HP afloat, you get to trigger this again. So potentially up to a 10% heal, likely on one ship, but potentially on 2 different ships, and that comes guaranteed every 20 seconds. That's solid. In fact, every ship in this event has a heal so far. Did I just jinx it? Anyway, this is a very solid heal to begin with, plus it has an added effect to do extra healing if you're falling behind. Also, when this ship takes damage and is under 50% of her max HP, all ships in your fleet get plus 10% anti-air and evasion stat. This triggers max once per battle, but it stays around permanently. So she has 2 permanent stat buffs that stick on other ships in your fleet. That's pretty impressive, actually. She's got a really good heal. She's got a freeze and a barrage. She's got a redirect on damage. Honestly, both of these skills are amazing. As far as an SR battleship, this might be a really top tier one. It's kind of hard because the UR battleships are in a whole different league, and she only has 2 skills, but both of these skills are extremely solid. They go with her kit. This is a great new battleship for any new player to pick up. Very solid ship Kazan is. She does it all. You could take her to all the different types of content. As much as I want to dislike this ship because she's stealing a slot from potentially another Dutch ship, this ship seems very solid. I like her kit. All right, let's move on to the next Russian ship. This one, unlike the previous 3 ships, will not be in the banner. It will be an accumulation reward, and this is going to be the elite light cruiser Oleg. Stat-wise, oh boy, look at that firepower. That is some low firepower. That's like some Cheon level firepower. I mean, she does get a main gun +1, but that is pitiful. Her HP isn't that spectacular either. The rest of her stats all look very elite. And I mean that in a bad way. Skill number 1. That might be one of the shortest skills I've seen on a recent ship, and that's plus 15% firepower and evasion stat, and then every 15 main gun shots she triggers a special barrage. Okay, isn't that supposed to be reserved for an all-out assault? I guess she kind of just gets another one. Cool. At least she has a main gun +1 to help trigger this. Her third skill is an all-out assault also, too, every 8 shots. So she's going to have 2 barrages that are based on the amount of main gun fires that she does. You're definitely going to want to put a really fast light cruiser gun on her. Her other skill says every 12 seconds she triggers a special barrage. This girl literally has 3 different barrages. 3 skills, 3 barrages. This barrage is interesting because when it triggers, one of 4 things is going to happen at equal probability. She's either going to get a single torpedo barrage, a single bomb barrage, or aimed bullet barrage, or a 5% heal to herself. So it is RNG, but there are a bunch of things you can do here. Also, because a heal is included in this barrage, that means that every ship in this event has a heal. Alright, Oleg is a collection-only ship, but she definitely has a lot of guns going for her. She's going to be throwing bullets all over the screen, and that's kind of fun, but mostly collection-only. So, before we end today, we have one more ship to go through. We're also going to get the Drawing the Starry Skies event today, and that will bring us Little Anchorage. She'll join your dock as an NPC, and over the course of the next 7 days, if you earn enough trust with her, she'll join permanently. Or with me, she'll just learn the meaning of disappointment. So unlike her original version, which is a PR ship or gold rarity, she is an elite ship. So she's going to see stat decreases across the board. Nothing too major other than her main gun efficiency is going to go down by a lot, which sucks because as a heavy cruiser, she's going to deal most of her damage through her main gun +1 firepower damage. Alright, let's move on to the skills, and this should be pretty quick because outside of her all-out assault, she only has one other skill. It starts off with plus 15% evasion stat, still not enough to bring her evasion up to what her original form had as the base default stat. And when she fires her torpedoes, she drops a smokescreen and triggers a special barrage. All ships within that smokescreen get a 40% evasion rate boost, and it lasts for 5 seconds and doesn't stack with other smokescreens. So it's just a basic smokescreen with a basic special barrage. This is literally just worse than Anchorage, who has a very special smokescreen that's very good. This one gets downgraded to just being a boring one. So Little Anchorage is collection only, strictly worse than her bigger form. All right, with that out of the way, we get everything that's coming today, and my final review of this is actually going to be slightly positive. I came out of the stream on Monday with some doubts, but I actually think that this, for a non-UR event, is pretty decent. We get a new faction, we get a lot of real ships, not looking at you, Kazan. Both of the SRs are solid, they both do good things. The Zeven is very much specialized towards anti-air, and she does that very well. Kazan is like an all-arounder barrage battleship. She does that very well. The elites are the elites, that's fine. We do have a theme here in that they're all healers, so that's kind of cool. Every one of the ships for the major event is going to be a healer, obviously not counting Little Anchorage, and so I like that. We get a new equipment. I think that equipment is good, very solid. So if you're a new player, Kazan and the Zeven are definitely good options. Make sure you pick up that equipment for certain. And yeah, if you're not, we have a lot of fleet tech that comes in here that we like. There are some interesting things. I don't know. Finally got Dutch ships. Java time got cut a little bit short, but overall, I think I'm going to enjoy this event. Of course, keep in mind, we're going to be getting a UR event in a month. So if you are low on cubes, this might be something you consider skipping. However, there is some value here, so if you can push it, maybe it's worth pushing it, but obviously you need to save up for the May UR event. Anyway, it's been a long time waiting for those of you who have wanted Dutch ships. It's exciting to finally be here. I'm excited to pick them up. I will be streaming this event, so I hope a lot of you will join me over there and we can play through the event together and go through some of the nuances and get the ships together and do all the gotcha pulls and whatnot, and basically just have a bunch of fun. Anyway, that's it for my data mine today. Thank you guys for watching. I'll see you guys next time, and take care of yourselves. Tot ziens!